are you? Welcome to Quiet Conversations with L. Jackson Pastor. And today I've got a guest, I've got a friend, little brother, Zaya Iro, aka Denny. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, me, Elvis. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, man. So today we're just going to have a conversation with regards to churches. Why a lot of young people are not in churches anymore, or why they just don't want to be involved in the church. Or some, you find that, especially with our traditional churches, you find that a lot of the young people tend to leave the church to go to different churches. So Denny's just going to help us just to understand this because of this generation, and I'm not about that generation. So not that I'm not about it, but I'm just saying I'm not there and he is there, type of thing, you know. So what are your thoughts on that matter?
Well, I think, honestly, speaking from a perspective in which I've seen and I've probably dealt with in my life, is that usually the youth, my youth, the coming youth, the youth that has passed, we all have a tendency of falling into influence. Like, we get influenced by friends. It would make sense because every day we do see them, and times are literally different now. Things are much bigger, or like people have sort of a thing that they'd rather do something else than to be in the church and listening to the gospel. And I don't really understand why that would be an influence in their mindset. But it is how we see the world in their own perspective. Yeah.
Okay, but so if we're looking at the concept of influence, we do have a lot of different concepts that have been placed into churches as well. If you look at your charismatic churches, where they do have the concepts of where we see a lot of the young kids, like for now, a lot of you guys are more into the hip hop space. And the hip hop is kind of played in the church, you know, or you've got a lot of the what would say influencers that are in the church and making the church a more hippie and, you know, nice place to be in. Yeah. So don't you think that as well, that could help churches if they change the way the way their order of services are?
Oh, well, honestly, believing that the influence of music in our generation, especially hip hop, does a lot, because you get to school, 5 of your friends are listening to the hip hop, then you get there, you'll be like, okay, I really like this. This is what I'm into as a youth man of this generation. We get, well, I won't say confused, but we do get entangled into things that are usually not supposed to be in our basis or perspective. And I think the fact that we do get the chance to actually hear hip hop in church would be a way of, like this church is cool, man. Like, I can like bump in anyway. I can still do the normal dabs, you know, whips and all of that. I can still be cool with the pastor. Like, you know, as soon as you get here, Elvis is greeting you with a nice smile. You're like, wow. This is a nice place to be around. There's no conflict.
Okay, but now with others, they'll look at, like, with the older generation as well, would look at hip hop as a type of genre that is predominantly it has a lot of profanity, and with if you look at, for example, we look at Tupac, for example, who is considered a philosophist, but at the same time, this dude he's got so much profane in his music that you cannot listen to. And then comes a guy like, let's just say Lecrae, who will come in as a Christian rapper and you know, speak positive stuff. But then still people will say, but no, hip hop is more of the devil's music or something like that. So what would you say in that part?
Well, I would say, honestly, it is time that we do change perspective, because not everything stays the same in life, and the way things move, you can see that the youth, we progressively moving faster and faster.
Yeah.
Usually you'd see that the grade 7s, grade 6s are like all developing in a stage which you can understand and can follow by, and you can properly guide them and all of that through the same church in which they'd be under. But then usually the thing of friends and how influence comes in it would make sense why they'd say that hip hop is not something that should be in church, but the way it is actually moving forward and digressing, I think that the youth itself would need a platform in which they can feel comfortable with. Then they can understand and they can manifest what is within the word and what is within the light of God in which we follow, and which if they can find a pastor or a church in which can offer that, I think they'd be following the right routes.
Okay, and then now with the traditional churches, when we look at traditional churches and how they are run and everything like that, it's still got that whole old school flavor to it, you know. And for me, I look at it in this way: like if we look at different movies, you know, or we can say television series like your Power and all that, just to name a few. If you look at it, at some point, you know, the people that we call the influencers that have influenced us as young people, you know, in the hip hop culture, most of them, the church played a role in them becoming who they are. And some of them you'd find, like, for example, if you look in Power, you'll find one of the priests was like a member of the family of all the gang members, if you look at it that way, you know, that type of thing. So even if it's an old school flavor or old school way of doing church, don't you think that with young people, what they need more now is not necessarily the style of church, but what they need is just someone to speak to them at their level?
Yeah, I think that is very true actually, because if you can combine what old school has and what the new school is bringing, I think it would be a proper combination in which would help adjust the kids, the youth, help them grow in a way in which they can understand and in a way in which they can actually find soothing. Like, if I'm listening to hip hop from my church, it's not a thing of, well, this thing definitely has profanity. It is from church, but you still can enjoy it in a way of, this is hip hop, but it's still from the church. I'm living in the way and I'm following the path.
Yeah.
And this is how the pastor would preach it.
Yeah, because if you still do look at the way the world evolved in all the different generations that it evolved in, when you look at church in the old days, you know, when they were still using swords and everything, you know, back in time, the church was like one of those places where, you know, it had a certain way, and then it changed as time grew and everything, and people as well evolved in a sense where people started liking. So now the thing is, do you think there is a certain way of worship, or just worship for you would be just a lifestyle?
Well, I think worship is a lifestyle, because in every day we walk under the lights, we are under the clouds in which we are provided, we walk on the grass in which that give us oxygen, trees that give us oxygen, the grass in which we feel, the air in which we breathe. Everything that was given to us is a lifestyle, and it was all given to us by the true and one God. And I believe that we should follow a path in a way that we do not move too quickly, but we do not move too slow too. Because even the old school was new school. Okay. You know, in a sense, that's how I believe. And I think the youth now is quite different to back in time. Because back in time, the youth was more like, right now you'll never see a youth that has the skirts all the way to the bottom, their ankles are not showing, so everything digresses, everything changes. I think maybe it is time that we find a way in which we can correlate the church and the youth in a way that they understand what they're listening to and what they're actually being preached. Because sometimes listening and what is being preached is completely different, because everybody has a different concept in what they understand.
Okay. But now others will tell you that when you get to a church and then they're like, nah, I don't feel, you know, the spirit going on here. I don't feel the way things are happening. And I always have this analogy of You know, it's like a hand. A hand has got different size fingers, but when it holds firm. So at the end of the day, as churches, there's different types of churches. You know, there's different styles in which they do things. But if we still worship together, we still worship and bring more power into that whole system of praising God. And so now, for me, it's more like I think more churches should start preaching more word and getting into communities and understanding what the community is about, what the kids want, what the youth want. But at the same time, we do not conform to the patterns of the world, but we be there, but be transformed, you know, from how the world has been perceived to be. So, as a young person, what changes do you think churches need to make in order for more young people to come back to the church?
Well, in my case, what I believe is that everything comes with understanding, and if you do not understand something, there's no way to properly get development from it.
Yeah.
Because usually each youth has its own way of understanding its world. We're all still learning how to understand the world as we grow up. We're still a youth, valley. We're still a seed that is slowly growing into something that is bigger. But I feel that there is something that should be considered, is that how we pursue the youth and how we chase them, and not chase them, but how we understand them and bridge a gap between the youth and the church. Because usually there's a thing of we'll focus mainly on what is central, which is the church itself.
Yeah.
But when we're not focusing on the youth is the people that will constantly develop. And obviously, if they start in the youth in one church, they're going to try and move into the same church, the main church, and go higher and higher within that same circle.
Yeah.
I believe that if we can make it in a way that they can understand that everything is preached to them properly, they have a way that they are comfortable in the space that they're in. Comfortability will allow them to actually hear what is being said, to actually contribute and actually put a collaboration towards something which is greater within the church.
Speaking about being comfortable as well, if we think of that concept of being comfortable, the moment people become comfortable, then they become stagnant, and then they become like if you put water in a dish and leave the dish outside and the water rots, it starts infesting a whole lot of things in it. You know, even mosquitoes just come in and it becomes more of a hazard than it is something that we can use to grow other plants or whatever. You know, so in that same sense, if we're going to put comfortability into the concept of a church, I think that's when the church becomes toxic as well, because a lot of people are comfortable and set in their ways, which is why I still think as well, which is why I think why a lot of young people are not coming into church. It's because the older folk think that the way church has been is the way it's supposed to be, and that's the way they're going to keep it, and they do not want to think, in a sense, it's not about thinking out of the box as well, but think within the box and say, okay, what can we do within our circles to create an environment where young people can just come in and be comfortable as well in our worship? Are we inviting them or are we chasing them away? Yeah.
Well, honestly, I think that is a way in which we should adapt, because the older people are usually the ones that are the heads, because usually, well, like in life, the youth is the youth,
yes,
and the ones that are before are the ones that are older. We understand that and we truly do respect that. But in a way, we have to understand that even the youth has a place in the church and in the gospel, and that we should move into a way of adapting in a way that we can both collaborate as the youth and as the older generations, yeah, or the people that are above us. We should find a way in which we can constantly keep a hold of each other, and that that the older generation obviously has something to teach the youth, and we are able to listen and understand and take that information, properly adapt and move further into our life. Because not only the pastor does preach the Bible, but not only the pastor can teach what life has.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, no, I feel you, man. So, do you have any other remarks with regards to just the church and young people not being at the church?
Well, honestly, I don't find it hard to get to church, but to those that do, I think it may be a thing of we find it like there's a lack of proper influence around us. We don't have people that can actually say, okay, yo, dude, let's get to church, bro. Like this Friday, there's you, the Elvis is gonna be there. Yo, everybody's going to be there. Let's get there.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna be nice. We don't have that type of influence. The people that are around us would usually say, yo, Friday, you're gonna go to church. What? Like, okay, then it's like, well, what are you trying to say about the church? If you're not going to be developing in life, then which part are you gonna follow? Party all the time. I think people do get tired of that, and usually you should find a way of self-development, because you can party. We don't, like, honestly, we are living through life where we're still partying and all that, but you still need a mental growth, spiritual growth, and a higher level in which you should understand the world.
Okay, no, you've actually said it all, man. Yeah. So thank you very much. Maybe we'll do another one of the days, just have a conversation and just think and be broad about what life is about. Yeah. And so to everyone, thank you very much for joining us. We're out here, and look at the next episode that's gonna come through. We're just trying to build this up. It's gonna be fire. Peace.